Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am absolutely thrilled to dive into today's explainer because we are looking at something that is fundamentally breaking and then completely remaking enterprise cloud security as we know it. We are talking about a massive, literal paradigm shift here, and it's all being driven by artificial intelligence. For the past decade, we've basically relied on the exact same playbook to keep our systems safe. But suddenly, the bad actors have access to tools that operate at a speed human beings simply cannot match. The old playbook is officially broken. So today, we're unpacking a fascinating new blueprint from AWS called AWS Continuum. It was just announced in a gated preview, and it is basically their answer to fighting machine speed threats with machine speed defense.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to logically unpack this whole transition from passive monitoring over to AI-driven active remediation. We'll hit the security paradigm shift, define exactly what machine speed means, introduce AWS Continuum, walk through its 4 continuous phases, and finish up with how it builds graduating trust. Packed agenda, so let's just jump right in.
All right, Section 1, the security paradigm shift.
To really get why this new AWS tool is such a big deal, we first need to establish where exactly current enterprise security systems are breaking down. And there's this quote from Jorg Hauser in the AWS announcement comments that just hits the nail on the head. He wrote, "Telemetry without context became a museum of things that already happened." Just think about that for a second. For years, right, the absolute gold standard in security was just collecting as much data, or telemetry, as possible. You store it, you query it, and you build these massive, complicated dashboards just to watch it all. But if you're just watching a dashboard, you aren't actually stopping anything in real time. You're basically walking through a museum of attacks that have already happened. The blast radius has already expanded. This passive approach is exactly why modern enterprises are struggling today.
In that old world of security, the whole mandate was just collect, store, query, and watch. But in the new world that AWS is building toward, telemetry is literally only step 1. It takes that data, adds context, applies reasoning, and, most importantly, takes actions to produce actual outcomes. In this new world, security is no longer just a dashboard problem. It has to become an operational judgment system. It has to look at the data, figure out what it actually means for the business, and act on it immediately.
Which takes us to Section 2, defining machine speed.
So why is this shift from the old world to the new world an absolute 5-alarm emergency right now? Well, it all comes down to machine speed. Recently, we've seen the release of some incredibly advanced frontier AI models, like Claude Mythos. And these models can now scan code and spot software vulnerabilities at an exponentially fast rate. We're talking fractions of a second to reason their way through incredibly complex, multi-step attack paths. If attackers are out there using frontier models to find your weak spots at machine speed, and your security team is sitting there manually sifting through a massively growing backlog on a dashboard, well, you've already lost. Human speed simply cannot keep up with machine speed anymore.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3. Enter AWS Continuum.
So, AWS just announced this new system called AWS Continuum for code vulnerabilities. Now, keep in mind, this is currently in gated preview, meaning they're testing it really closely with early customers right now. But what makes Continuum such a real game changer is that it addresses the entire life cycle of a code vulnerability, from the exact second it's discovered all the way through to taking action, and it does it entirely at machine speed. And my absolute favorite detail here, it is completely model agnostic. It doesn't rely on just one single AI. Instead, it's designed to use multiple frontier models, grabbing whichever one performs best for a specific task. And it's built to smoothly swap in even better models as they inevitably come out in the future.
Okay, so how does Continuum actually pull off this new world vision? Basically, it unifies 2 massive buckets of context. First, you have your structured data. This is the stuff already living in your AWS environment, your infrastructure, your permissions, the network topology, the code itself. But second, it ingests unstructured data. This is the messy, day-to-day reality of how your organization actually runs. We're talking business priorities, risk profiles, internal documents, communications. Continuum pulls all of this together so it isn't just blindly applying generic security rules. It actually understands the highly specific business context of your company. Let's look under the hood. In Section 4, the 4 continuous phases. This right here is where the magic happens. Phase 1 is discovery. It ingests your existing, probably massive backlog of vulnerabilities and then runs its own deep scan to map out all possible attack paths. Phase 2 is prioritization. By using all that rich context we just talked about, it asks the important questions. Is this vulnerable component actually deployed? Can an attacker even reach it? What would the actual business impact be if they did? So it gives your team a real, evidence-backed priority list. Then we have phase 3, validation, which is just mind-blowing. It weeds out false positives, which are normally a huge drain on security teams. And how does it do it? It actually constructs a working exploit in a sandbox environment to provide concrete, reproducible proof that the threat is real. No way, right? Finally, phase 4 is mitigation. It assesses your existing defenses and recommends a network change, a policy update, or even a direct code patch. It actually validates its own recommended patch using the exact same system that found the bug in the first place, giving you blast radius visibility and safe rollback paths. It literally finds the bug, proves it's real, and writes the fix.
Moving to our final section, Section 5, graduating trust and capabilities.
Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. Handing over the keys to an AI to automatically rewrite your code and change your network policies? Yeah, that sounds pretty terrifying. AWS knows this, which is why they built a whole system around this concept of graduated trust. You don't just flip a switch to full automation on day one. You start in learn mode. Here, there is a human explicitly in the loop. The AI makes recommendations, but crucially, it explains the exact reasoning behind every single suggestion. It shows its work. The whole purpose here is to earn your team's trust and build up that confidence. Once you actually trust how it makes decisions, you can graduate specific categories or risk profiles into enforce mode. And that is where the system executes automatically, bringing you true machine-speed automated remediation.
And AWS is already expanding this whole ecosystem way beyond just code vulnerabilities. It now includes continuum pen testing and continuum code scanning. They are also previewing continuum threat modeling. This is incredibly cool. It can automatically generate comprehensive threat models directly from your design documents or your source code, and then it outputs the results in the industry-standard STRIDE format. All of these tools feed right back into that continuous loop of discovery, prioritization, validation, and remediation.
And we are already seeing validation from the market on this. AWS noted early feedback from highly regulated, super complex industries, financial services, automotive, technology. The consensus is overwhelmingly clear. Security teams are just exhausted. They do not want more alerts. What they want are tools that can earn their trust and then actually take action to fix the problem. They need that operational judgment system we talked about at the very beginning.
Which brings us to our final thought. If the threats against your enterprise are out there right now discovering vulnerabilities and executing complex attack paths at machine speed, is your security posture still sitting in a museum, just waiting on a dashboard? It's a pretty provocative question for sure, but in this new era of AI, it is exactly the question every single organization needs to be asking themselves today. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this incredible paradigm shift. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.